It should have been a routine transit through the Deep South, but on Highway 31, Bob Marley turned a blind eye to a threat that his bandmates begged him to ignore. A handwritten warning on the restaurant window, "Whites only." Most musicians would have hit the gas pedal to escape the Alabama feud of 1978. Marley slammed on the brakes. What unfolded over the next 11 minutes was more than just a standoff. It was a collision of worlds that would shatter one man's entire belief system without throwing a punch. The owner thought he was defending his heritage. Little did he know that he was standing in the path of a hurricane, armed with a six-string guitar and a terrifying radical benevolence. The real storm was yet to come. If you're addicted to the gritty, untold history behind music, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. Hit the bell as we explore the dangerous moments that make legends. March 15th, 1978. The Wailers were cutting through the Alabama twilight, transitioning between a gig in Birmingham and a show in Montgomery. They had endured 2 hours of back roads, cotton fields, and claustrophobia, searching for food. The air inside the tour bus was thick and stagnant, retaining the day's heat. Up front, Marley sat in silence, his dreadlocks framing a gaze fixed on the fading light. Behind him, the tension was palpable. Carlton Barrett was nervously tapping rhythms on the upholstery. Family Man was buried in his bass strings, trying to tune out the hunger. "There," the driver said, gesturing toward a structure ahead. "Looks like a spot." As the vehicle slowed, the details came into focus. Dixie's Diner was a decaying establishment, with peeling paint and a gravel lot. But the structural rot wasn't what made Bob's stomach turn. It was the sign in the front window, aggressive black lettering on cardboard: "No Jamaicans, no blacks. Whites only." It was 14 years post-Civil Rights Act. Yet here, the old laws were still written in ink and blood. Aston Barrett's voice dropped to a whisper. "Keep moving, Bob. We aren't welcome there." Bob didn't blink. He had stared down gunmen in Kingston. A piece of cardboard wasn't going to turn him around. The casual arrogance of the hate stirred something volatile in his spirit. "Pull over," he commanded softly. "Bob, no," Carlton protested. "We can find another place." But Bob was already rising, bypassing the exit to reach for his acoustic guitar in the overhead rack. He knew that sometimes you have to walk directly into the fire to extinguish it. The driver reluctantly swung the bus into the lot, across from the diner. Through the glass, 20 white patrons watched the vehicle like predators watching prey. Bob slung the guitar over his shoulder and marched toward the entrance. "Lord help us," Family Man muttered, clutching his instrument like a weapon. "Here we go." The Wailers stepped off the bus, following a man who treated danger like an old friend. When Bob shoved the front door open, the bell didn't just chime, it announced an invasion. The room went dead silent. 20 pairs of eyes locked onto the dreadlocked figures entering their sanctuary. Behind the counter stood Earl Watson, a man in his 50s with grease-stained hands and a face set in stone. The diner was his legacy, passed down through 3 generations of exclusion. Earl recognized the face. Reggae had breached even these borders, and Marley was becoming an icon. But fame didn't grant immunity here. "Can't you read?" Earl's voice shattered the quiet, sharp as a whip. "The sign says no blacks. That means you." The patrons shifted, the air growing violent. Some looked ready to fight. Others looked away, sensing the volatility. Bob walked to the counter, unbothered, the guitar still strapped to his back. "I read just fine, brother," Bob said, his accent cutting through the tension. "But I'm wondering if you can read the things that aren't written down." What is that supposed to mean? Earl snapped. Bob offered a faint, disarming smile. Have you ever read about love? About unity? The idea that we all bleed the same? Earl's face went crimson. I don't care about your hippie nonsense. This is my property. I have the right to throw anyone out. Leave before I call the sheriff. But Bob didn't retreat. Instead, he sat down at the counter, acting as if they were old drinking buddies. You know, Bob said, sliding the guitar onto his lap, I've been everywhere. London, New York, LA, and everywhere I go, I meet men who think skin color tells them who a person is. Earl crossed his arms, his posture defensive. What's your point? My point, Bob said, tuning the instrument, is that I've never met anyone who still believed that once the music started. The sharp, resonant notes of the guitar filled the silent room. Earl demanded to know what he was doing, but Bob simply said, I'm going to play. Then you tell me if you still think I'm wrong because of where I'm from. Before Earl could shout it out, the first chords of Three Little Birds rang out. The change was internal. The tension in the room didn't disappear immediately. It stopped, moved by the boldness of the melody. Bob's voice, a force of nature, filled the narrow space. Don't worry about anything. The music pushed the mind aside and hit straight to the gut. Even Earl, his hand bent over the phone, felt frozen. Then cracks began to appear in the wall. In a booth in the corner, a 7-year-old girl began to hum. It was Earl's daughter, Mary Watson. Her innocence cut through the racial tension like a knife. Her father tried to calm her down, but the melody was too powerful for his authority. This is the raw, undocumented history we explore in the Marley Files, a place where legend and reality collide. The girl's voice mingled with Bob's, and suddenly the room was no longer a fortress of segregation. It was simply a room with people in it. When the song ended, Mary broke the silence. It's so beautiful, she said. Sing another song. Bob looked at Earl, who was staring at his daughter in disbelief. Mary, get out of there, Earl said. But there was no longer any venom in his voice. Mary ignored him, only walking toward Bob with the fearless curiosity of a child. Why are you talking so funny? He asked. I'm from Jamaica, Bob explained softly. This is an island where the water is blue and music grows like flowers. People sing when they work, when they cry. It reminds us that we are connected. Mary turned to her father and delivered the blow that would shake his world. Dad, why can't she eat here? She looks good. Earl stammered. How could you justify hating a child who had heard something beautiful? He had no answer that didn't sound ugly. Bob switched to One Love, and the band quietly added harmonies. The sound physically hit the walls of prejudice. The audience began to stamp their feet. Music was doing what the law could not. An elderly woman named Martha stood up and addressed the room. Young man, she said, her voice trembling, I haven't heard anything so beautiful in 20 years. She turned to Earl. We don't all agree with this sign, Earl. The situation had changed. Earl watched the community side with the strangers. He watched in admiration as his daughter climbed onto a stool next to Bob. Dad, Mary said, can we keep this music? It makes me happy. Earl looked around at the faces around him. He realized that his hatred wasn't protecting his way of life. It was taking away moments like this with his own child. I don't understand, Earl whispered to Bob, the struggle choking him. How can you be kind after what I said? After this sign? Bob put down his guitar. Brother, hate only rots the vessel that carries it. You drive out the darkness with light. I don't know how to change, Earl confessed, his hands shaking. "That's all I know." "Start," Bob said, pointing to the window, "by taking this." Earl Watson was frozen, staring at the scratched-up cardboard that marked his presence. Then, with his daughter's gaze, he walked to the window. He tore the sign down, threw it on the floor, crushed it, and threw it in the trash. When he returned, tears were streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he choked out, "for the sign, for the hate." Bob was not amused. He stepped closer and put his hand on Earl's shoulder. "That's the bravest thing I've seen all week." The restaurant erupted in applause, not out of anger. Mary clapped her hands happily. "Now," Bob smiled, breaking the heavy atmosphere. "How's that dinner? Singing makes me hungry." They ate together, fried chicken and cornbread, served an hour earlier by a man who had been an enemy. Earl pulled Bob aside before the bus pulled away. "You changed my life today," he said. "I'm going to be different." "I believe you," Bob replied, "and I'll check it out." The story of Dixie's restaurant quickly spread across the state. Other signs followed, some quietly, some openly. But to those who were there that night, it was clear. Bob Marley didn't just sing, he weaponized love to break a man who thought he was unbreakable. That's all for our story. What convinced you? You can write in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and watch the next episode.